Hello and welcome to a very special cover story as we take a look at the year gone by. It's been a pretty active year, political highs and lows. So, we are going to be taking a look at these markers. I mean, who has been the game changer of the year? Who's been the disaster of the year? Has the year been better or worse for Prime Minister Modi and Rahul Gandhi from the beginning as it is now in the end? So, that is something I'm going to be discussing with my panel today. I have with me on the show Dr. Sanjay Baru. He's a former media advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh. He's an author and a political columnist. I have Dilip Cherian. He is a media guru and also a political commentator. Dr. Baru, I'll begin with you. Taking a look back at the year, let me begin with the last question first. Do you think it's the year began well for Narendra Modi? And I mean, is the year ended? What is his political balance sheet from the beginning to the end of the year?
Well, I think the political balance sheet is okay. He has won in Bihar and consolidated his position nationally. I think if they had lost in Bihar, that would have put a huge shadow over his national leadership. So, in that sense, the year has been okay for him. Um, and whether that has helped in turning the economy around and stabilizing India at home and improving India's status internationally is a separate question. But as far as his own situation is concerned, I think Prime Minister Modi is in a much better situation today than he was at the beginning of the year.
Dilip, your take, with or without Donald Trump, how has Modi's year turned out?
I think for uh, Prime Minister Modi, domestic trumps over global. That's very clear.
Okay.
The global is about demonstration, about expression, but Mr. Modi is in election mode right through the year. So, in a sense, what Sanjay just said is one part of it, which is winning the election. The other, much more important part of it is that he has been able to get the SIR operation off the ground in a very major sense. And electorally, that is hugely significant for what he has in mind. I think the next big thing he wants to do is this one nation, one vote. And all of these moves are designed to move in that direction. So, politically, I think the consolidation of power and the consolidation of the party under one leader, the thrusting of a complete rank outsider as party president, for example, politically signifies that Prime Minister Modi is in charge, has politics at the center of whatever he's doing, and has had a fairly good run for the year. I don't know how he would assess himself, but I think it would weigh heavily on the positive side from his personal assessment also.
That's true. Dr. War, can you think of any of the negatives? Because he's done, I mean, apart from the international relations, he's done well in Bihar, as you said. Is right. He's appointed a nobody as the party president, which shows that despite whatever we had thought RSS would interfere, RSS has a say in Modi government, he will carry on doing what he wants. There's been no cabinet reshuffle, really. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So he is in charge, really. So has there been any downside for Modi? Even Operation Sindoor, I mean, we can look at it plus minus, but in the end, he did do his chest thumping on that.
Oh, I think the real downside is the fact that despite his dominance over the Indian political scene for almost
Hmm.
11 years now, more than 11 years now, he has not made any fundamental difference to the course of this country's progress. The fact is that we were on a much higher growth trajectory in the first decade of the 21st century. The world was looking at us as a country catching up with China, and that the rising Asia narrative was based on the rise of both China and India. But in the subsequent 15 years, of which Mr. Modi has dominated 11 years, the economy has slowed down, decelerated. We are still one of the fastest growing large economies, but that has not made a difference to this the pace of change. The average rate of growth over the last 15 years has been around 6% compared to about 8% during the first decade of the 21st century. And externally, India's position is today, I think, much weaker than it was 15 years ago. We can talk about the foreign policy and the world outside later. But, the fact is that during the Operation Sindoor, it took an enormous political effort, sending some
Hmm.
50 MPs around the world to convince the world of our
We
narrative.
won.
Fact is that Pakistan won the
Propaganda.
propaganda war on that operation. I think we bungled whatever messaging had to be done. The fact is, on the one hand, you have a prime minister who is very, very powerful, like Indira Gandhi. But on the other hand, the impact of that, I mean, don't forget, for example, that when he came back to power in 2019, the slogan was that by 2025, India would be a $5 trillion economy. That was the
Right.
slogan, right? We are in 20 at the end of 2025. We are just now around 4 trillion. We have not hit the 5 trillion mark. Now, of course, everybody says, oh, that's because of COVID. Of course, COVID did have an impact, negative impact. But then we didn't pick up after COVID as fast enough. And the growth process that we have had has been described almost by everybody as a K-shaped recovery, which means the rich have become better off and the poor have not become better off. So there is a kind of a divergence in the growth process. This has been a major factor behind the slowdown of the economy because demand is not picking up. The capacity utilization of most manufacturing firms across the country today is just around 75%, which is why no new private investment is happening. The ratio of private gross capital formation to national income has remained stagnant. So there are a lot of downsides. In his August 2024 Independence Day speech, Prime Minister Modi promised a mission for the ease of living. That was
Hmm.
in August 2024. We are now in December 2025, and only yesterday he repeated again that in 2026 he would focus on the ease of living. I mean, it's taken 1.5 years to operationalize an idea that was articulated, 1.5 years back. So I think translating that power, that political power that he has acquired, or is acquiring, or hopes to continue to acquire, into meaningful results as far as economic development, improvement of the lives of people, into India's status internationally. That translation has not happened satisfactorily.
Actually, the economy, Dilip, remains Prime Minister's Achilles heel. Whatever you may say, all these adventures like demonetization has, he's now paying the toll. So, his political wins are largely because of him or because the opposition hasn't got his act together?
I think if we focus on the economy for a minute,
Hmm.
there is no doubt that he is held back by the lack of a powerful and very, shall we say, forward looking finance minister. We have instead somebody who's actually much more adept and enthused by bookkeeping. That's one. The second is if you look at the only really attractive aspect of India's economy from a global standpoint, it is the fact that we have a huge market. But in the context of what uh, Sanjay referred to as the K-shaped economy that's developing, the K on the top is very, very skewed to a very small number of immensely rich. And the
The
K
K
at
is more of an A, I think.
the part at the bottom, yes, more of an A, and the part at the bottom is growing wider. The disparities are getting more visible, and therefore the markets are vanishing. What is significant is that you don't really have very large markets for too many commodities, except for pathetically cheap items. So your dependence on China for these pathetic items is also going to increase, and we'll get to that later, I'm sure. But the only real economic action that he has taken, which is significant, is the labor reform that they tried to implement, that they actually announced and implemented a few weeks ago. But other than that, on the economic side, if one looks at what's going on, there is this saving going on, which is also very dangerous, and the ways of funding the kind of freebie systems that the center is rolling out, which won them the elections in Bihar and Maharashtra, are going to be hugely expensive. And you may do window dressing around the budget, you may do squeezing around GST, which the finance minister will eventually do in a month from now. But the point is that everybody knows the reality by now, and it's beginning to bite the average citizen and the vocal middle class citizen.
Fine. I hope the middle class does get vocal. That's, I think, been a part of the problem is middle class has not been too vocal. But Dr. Bharat, so then for Rahul Gandhi, Dilip made a good point about the SIR. Has he he's lost Bihar, of course, but has he got finally an issue that is uniting the opposition? We've seen everybody come together on the SIR issue at least.
No, you see, the issue is not Rahul Gandhi. I'm afraid there's too much media focus on his personality, his performance, etc. The issue is a larger one. I think with Digvijay Singh seems to have flagged the other day, which we have been talking about for some time, which is the Congress organizationally has not been able to really take advantage of the situation offered by the ruling party, which is of bad governance, low economic slowdown, foreign policy failures. And I think there is an issue of organization, there's an issue of mobilization, there's an issue really of the what should I say, the slogan, the what is the flag that the Congress today upholds. I mean, in terms of personalities, I'm truly impressed by what Priyanka Gandhi did in Parliament in the winter session. I mean, she comes across as a far more striking personality. But I don't think the issue is really of personalities. We look at the two states, important states where the Congress party is in government, Karnataka and Telangana. Is there any difference in the manner of governance of the Congress? I mean, apart from the fact that minorities feel safer in these states than they do in UP or Rajasthan or Madhya Pradesh, that certainly is what distinguishes a secular party from a communal party. But apart from that, what has been the distinction? Are roads better in the Karnataka and Hyderabad in Telangana than they are in Madhya Pradesh or Maharashtra? Is the overall urban governance better? What is the message the Congress is giving to the current generation, saying, like, look, what the BJP is doing is not going to take the country forward. This is what we will do. So that message, that platform, to me, beyond saying that vote chori and minority bashing, which of course are issues, I don't deny they are issues, but I don't think that's enough. You have to return to a narrative, a developmental narrative, a narrative that says India was on a rising growth path. There was a rising India at one point. The world wrote about it. You look at the literature, most of the books about rising India were published between the late 90s and around till about 2010. And then we see a decline in that kind of writing. Why is that happening? I think those are the issues, larger issues, where the Congress has not been able to capture popular imagination.
That's really a good point, actually. Today, if you see all the books, they're all now, for lack of anything else, Hindutva. That's all they can talk about because that's the only thing that is rising. Nothing else. The economy is not. I think it's a very good point. But Dilip, this narrative business, the Congress, instead of always criticizing Modi, they should also find out like he had the Gujarat model. What is the Congress model, the Karnataka model, whatever the model? That's where the big gap is, right? Or a good narrative.
As a narrative spinning person, which is what I do for a living,
exactly.
The danger with narratives and Mr. Modi is that you can't compete with him. The moment you make a narrative about something, he begins to take that over, announce something, jump on it, stomp on it, and own it in a very short while. The speed to market with his narrative acquisition is so high that political parties have learned very wisely to keep their cards to their chest. It, of course, implies that they're not able to sell a narrative in time for elections, and that is why they're always playing catch up at election time. The fact that the election cycles have gone tighter is also to their advantage as far as this is concerned. But Mr. Modi is in narrative spinning mode every day of the week. And that is a reason why political parties don't want to create another narrative. It's much easier to knock every narrative uh, with whatever effort or whatever competence and capability and sound effects that they're able to muster, which is not very much given how wonderfully the media is playing to this. Now, whether that will change in the days to come is something that we'll have to reckon. And we know everyone who's watching this program probably knows what we are talking about.
No, let us talk about that. Has the PMO wall finally been breached? At the end of the year, we've never known what happens behind the PMO, the shadowy world of the PMO, but suddenly stories are coming out. So, Dr. Baru, is there a chink in the armor that, finally, at least whispers are starting to come out? Is this the beginning of the end?
I don't know if it's the beginning of the end, but certainly there are not just one chink in the armor. There is now more than one chink in the armor. For example, the distance between the RSS and the BJP, that is growing.
Hmm.
I mean, you talk to people in the RSS, there is a growing sense of unease with the domination over the party of these two gentlemen from Gujarat. There is certainly unease. There's certainly unease within the BJP too, and there is certainly unease in the RSS. And those relationships have become, strained or stressed. And that is a chink in the armor. The fact that the individuals, so-called powerful individuals, I don't know facts, I have no idea how powerful this gentleman was, this Hiren Joshi. But the fact that all of this is coming out in the social media, the mainline media, of course, continues to be irrelevant now. But if you look at social media or YouTube channels, etc., a lot of this is coming out. Now, this is for the first time. And there has been no response from either the Prime Minister's office or any other segment of government. So there are these things in the armor. But, it's possible that because the opposition is so weak in articulating its own views, and because it's focused on issues which may not be touching people's lives directly, like the vote chori issue. They're not able to take advantage of these things in the armor as yet.
Yeah, Dilip, that's, there are, other chinks that if you would like to highlight at the end of the year, all is well, but yet all is not so well also for the Prime Minister's office.
I think 2026 is going to be the year of reckoning because of the fact that the huge chink in the armor is going to be displayed in what actually happens in the run-up to UP. Not UP itself, but in the run-up to UP. The swift dispatch of Navneet Sehgal is only one of the early signs of unrest that emanates out of the fact that UP is going into elections. Don't forget that a gigantic state like that, the machine begins to move very early. And that is one kind of chink in the armor that the BJP has and the Prime Minister has not had to deal with in the past. The fact that it has begun so early is a very interesting symptom. And, it is not, shall we say, it should not actually have surprised people like Sanjay, you or me, because we have watched the rise and fall of regimes. And, things we thought were immovable objects suddenly begin to, first rattle and shake and then to crumble. So we need to understand that any assessment we make of what has been 25, I think if I were to leave a leitmotif behind, it is that the fort is beginning to tremble. And that is an interesting thought to have as we move into 26, simply because you are going to go into the most significant election before 29 is actually the UP elections of 27.
No, well said. But also, having said that, Prime Minister Modi is a great adept at overcoming and fighting back also. So, the fact that this the so-called chink has not been allowed to grow. I mean, if this happened in the UPA government, remember, Dr. Bahar, you were there. There was such a big thing with disconnect between Ten Janpath and the PMO. What is happening? All the stories were being out left, right, and center. The fact that this is being handled the way it is, I'm going to be really watching the space as to how they handle it. Handle is the right word, really. But I'm going to take a quick break and come back and discuss, keep this conversation going. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to a cover story conversation as we take a look at the year gone by and also a look at the year ahead, Dr. Baru, because the budget will be the first big thing. You talked about the economy, but there are also very important elections coming up in 26. The run up to UP 27, but there is Assam, there is West Bengal, there is Tamil Nadu, Kerala. So important stakes for both the BJP and the Congress.
Yes, but let me begin with the budget since you mentioned that.
Okay.
In the last couple of days, we've had some interesting statements from the Prime Minister. As I said earlier, he referred to ease of living and he referred to the need for reform and deregulation, etc. Gentlemen in the government whom I have been speaking to have been telling me that wait for major announcements. We've had a couple of them in the last month, for example, the new labor code, etc. So if really this budget is an important policy statement of going forward, of turning around the economy and taking it forward, of altering sentiment, etc., then there is some hope for the future. Problem with Nirmala Sitharaman, as Dilip correctly said, she's a good housekeeper. Her fiscal management has been good, and economists have generally praised her for good fiscal management. But she has not been a big thinker and an articulator of policy. Maybe that's because she's left it to the Prime Minister. I think the assumption is that the Prime Minister will articulate the big ideas. So, but the budget speech is a policy statement which the Finance Minister makes. So whether she writes it or the Prime Minister writes it, I hope it can be a mood changer, a game changer, because we need a change of sentiment in the marketplace. We need private investment to come into this country. We need foreign investment to come into this country. Net inflows have not been particularly good. Now, as far as the assembly elections are concerned, I don't think what happens in Kerala or Tamil Nadu will make too much of a difference to the future of the BJP. It's Tweedledum or Tweedledee in both states, and there is no pro-BJP sentiment in those states. But certainly, Bengal is an important state for the BJP to try and take over. But Mamata Banerjee is a formidable political leader. And if the politics of Bengal focuses on regional sentiment rather than communal sentiment, I think Mamata Banerjee is on a solid footing. But if the BJP succeeds in altering the sentiment from regional to communal, then they could pose some challenge to her.
Dilip, there's also, talk about the event that did not happen in 2025, which is the cabinet reshuffle. Will that happen in 26? What have you heard?
I think for Prime Minister Modi, cabinet reshuffles are totally irrelevant from the point of view of management of the country. They're relevant from the point of view of balancing state pressures as and when you want to plan for elections there. So when you look at the cabinet reshuffle, look at the elections that are ahead in the next year and the year after. That is what will signal either the need or the character of any cabinet reshuffle. When is it that you've had a situation where you had a visible dropping or replacing someone for gross competence? You don't see that. Okay? Therefore, to expect that, I think, is a little far-fetched. I know the waters in which you are fishing. You are hoping that some of these youngsters will find their place and all of that. That ain't how it works, baby, with him. He's done the big move for the young as far as putting a 45-year-old as party president is concerned. Now all of you fall in line, and all of you above that line figure out whether you have jobs to hold on to.
Another Mardarshak Fundal, well said. But just before we end, Dr. Baru, if I were to ask you that one political debut or game changer, newsmaker of the year, who would that be?
In India or internationally?
In India,
In
internationally, I
India,
think
yeah, internationally it's Donald Trump. But in India, I think it is really Priyanka Gandhi.
it is,
I
yeah.
think she has captured the imagination of a lot of people. I mean, even I know the other day I was with a group of very diehard BJP supporters, many of them Marwadis, and they are all in praise of her, sorry, of her performance in parliament. You know, I think she's really captured the imagination of a lot of people, and certainly I was very impressed by her performance in parliament. So if there's one politician who's kind of made a mark this year, I think it's really Priyanka.
Dilip?
For me, it's Nitin Naveen. Did you see his entry into the BJP headquarters that day? And
Oh, wow.
it was actually worth watching to see the kind of mob frenzy that was drummed around that event. Meaning, clearly, he's not a man with charisma or rat packs of supporters ready to rabble rouse. But the fact that it was engineered means that he's going to be the man to watch in 2026, and we better get used to it. I think the priceless performance of Priyanka in Parliament is something that is going to be watched, especially in the onrushing cabinet in the budget session, because that is where she will get an even better chance to talk about the issues she wants to talk about. But in terms of newsmakers of 2025, I would say the shock and awe with which this guy arrived, and the fact that he's really going to take charge only in late February is going to make him the newsmaker who's already been announced.
Okay. In fact, interesting. Both names, not party leaders in terms of number one rank, but they both have done very well, and two surprising names that you both have chosen. Disasters of the year. Before I let you go, let's ask some political disaster of the year, Dr. Baru.
Well, I mean, there are so many. Dilip earlier used a phrase which I loved called gross competence. Normally we say gross incompetence. But there are a lot of people who have been tainted by gross competence. I mean, I think there's been a huge failure of governance in the country. And the focus, for example, in the last year has been so much on bad roads. So maybe Nitin Gadkari would be one person, who gets to take the what is called the brass medal for mismanagement of roads. But then there are bad roads across the country. I mean, even in a state like Telangana, which rising Telangana, and I'm right now sitting in Hyderabad, terrible roads. So I think all those ministers in charge of roads are the really useless guys of the country.
Dilip, your take.
I think for me, the man who sort of crashed visibly was Prashant Kishore. Here was
yes,
a man
let's not forget him.
who claimed that he had brought lots of people into power, despite the fact that those in politics know that he only backed those who were already close to power. But where his debut was concerned, of course, his entire existence will depend on whether he's able to sustain his his system and his hope into the next election, which is 5 years away. But in terms of crashing and flaming on crash landing, definitely Prashant, to my mind, is the brass medal, as Sanjay said very eloquently, of the year.
Yeah, and we see him meeting Priyanka and Rahul Gandhi at the end of the year. So that is also a very interesting space to watch. But on that note, wish you all a very happy new year, and thank you for this conversation with us. And of course, a look ahead at the next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.